February 24th, 2026. Bill Gates sits down with his foundation staff. He apologizes for Epstein, for the meetings, for the photos with redacted faces. He says it was a huge mistake. February 27th. Donald Trump signs an executive order banning Anthropic, one of America's most advanced AI companies, from all federal work. He calls them a supply chain risk. February 28th. American bombs start falling on Tehran. 4 days, 3 events, and a question that no one in mainstream media is asking. What did the AI know? Who needed it silenced before the war started? And who else was pushing for this war to happen now? Because while the cameras focused on Epstein and AI bans, 2 other forces were moving in the background. One in Tel Aviv, one in Washington, both with their own reasons to start a war. I'm Marcus Ronan, and you're watching Global Axis Brief. And this is the story they don't want you to connect. Let's start with February 24th. Bill Gates holds a town hall with Gates Foundation employees. The Epstein files have just dropped millions of pages. His name appears thousands of times. Photos surface of him with women, faces redacted, questions unanswered. He tells staff, "It was a huge mistake to spend time with Epstein. I apologize to other people who are drawn into this because of the mistake that I made." He admits meetings from 2011 through 2014, flights on Epstein's jet, time spent across 3 countries. He says Epstein asked him to take photos with his assistants after meetings, photos now public, faces hidden. But here's what's important. Gates also admits that Epstein knew about his personal affairs, 2 relationships with Russian women, information that Epstein had in his possession, information that now sits in those files. And Gates does something interesting. He pulls out of speaking at an AI summit in New Delhi to ensure the focus remains on the AI summit's key priorities, they say. And in Washington, a clock is ticking. But while Gates was apologizing, another drama was unfolding, one that would prove far more dangerous. Now we go to February 27th, 3 days after Gates's apology. 1 day before the war, President Trump announces he's banning Anthropic, the company behind Claude AI, from all federal contracts. Calls them a supply chain risk. Gives them 6 months to transition out. Sounds routine, right? Except for one detail. Anthropic's AI was already deeply embedded in Pentagon war planning. Since late 2024, Anthropic had been working with U.S. Central Command. Their Claude Gov system was running on classified networks, doing intelligence assessment, target identification, battle simulation. And here's what the Pentagon doesn't want you to know. Claude had been simulating strikes on Iran for months, running scenarios, predicting outcomes, modeling exactly what would happen if American bombs fell on Tehran. So why ban them now? Because Anthropic refused to remove 2 lines in their contract. 2 safety restrictions, no fully autonomous lethal weapons, and no mass domestic surveillance of U.S. citizens. The Pentagon wanted unlimited use, wanted Claude for all lawful purposes, wanted the ability to expand into things they weren't ready to name. Anthropic said no. Trump gave them an ultimatum: sign by February 27th or be banned. Anthropic's CEO Dario Amodei refused. February 27th. Anthropic is blacklisted. February 28th. The war begins. And here's the part that should make your skin crawl. Despite the ban, U.S. Central Command used Claude during the actual strikes. The same AI that simulated the war was used to fight it, even after the company was officially banned. But the AI story is only one piece, because while Anthropic was being silenced, another conversation was happening, one that started months earlier at Mar-a-Lago. December 2024. Mar-a-Lago. Benjamin Netanyahu sits down with Donald Trump for a private meeting. On the agenda, Iran. According to the New York Times, citing people with direct knowledge of the deliberations, including American and Israeli officials, diplomats, lawmakers, and intelligence figures, Netanyahu spent months lobbying Trump personally for this war. He raised the prospect of hitting Iran's missile sites during that December visit, then kept pushing, kept pressing, kept warning that time was running out. By February 2026, Netanyahu had secured something significant: broader U.S. involvement in a campaign aimed at bringing down the Iranian leadership. Now, Netanyahu publicly denies he dragged Trump into anything. When Fox News asked him about it, he said, and I quote, "Donald Trump is the strongest leader in the world. He does what he thinks is right for America. You don't have to drag him into anything." But here's what Netanyahu said next, and this is the part you need to hear. "The reason that we had to act now is because they were building nuclear sites. They are unreformable. They are totally fanatic about this, about the goal of destroying America." Unreformable. That's the word he used. The argument? That Iran was building underground bunkers that would become untouchable within months. That if they waited, the window would close forever. So Netanyahu pushed, and pushed hard. But here's the problem with that argument. International Atomic Energy Agency Chief Rafael Grossi said there is no evidence that any nuclear installations were actually hit. "We have no indication that any of the nuclear installations have been damaged," he told reporters. So if they weren't hitting nuclear sites, what were they hitting? And why the urgency to strike now? The answer might have less to do with Tehran and more to do with Washington. March 3rd, 2026. Texas holds its primary elections, the first real test of voter sentiment since the war began. And here's what the political analysts are watching. The party of a sitting president almost always loses seats in midterms. Trump's approval ratings are at 39%, the lowest since January 6, 2021. Republicans are worried they could lose control of Congress. Enter a war. Political scientist Jack Levy calls it diversionary war theory. Leaders facing domestic crises start conflicts to redirect public attention. Bill Clinton did it in 1998 with cruise missiles during Lewinsky. Now look at the timing. Remember that congressional vote I mentioned earlier, the War Powers Resolution? It was scheduled for this week, a vote that could have blocked Trump from striking Iran without congressional approval. By striking on February 28th, days before that vote, Trump presented Congress with a fait accompli. American troops are already in combat. Ships are already hit. Americans are already dead. Now, any politician who votes against this war votes against American soldiers who are already fighting. That's political suicide. The Jerusalem Post confirmed it. The attack was likely moved up to preempt anti-war vote in U.S. Congress. But there's more. The midterms aren't just about control of Congress. They're about the Epstein files. Remember those 3 million pages the DOJ released? Investigators say that may represent only 2% of the total data seized from Epstein's properties. 2%. And multiple members of Congress, including Trump's own allies, were demanding investigations into why Trump-related materials were withheld. Representative Thomas Massey posted, "PSA, bombing a country on the other side of the globe won't make the Epstein files go away." Another candidate posted, "The Epstein files are not in Iran." But here's the uncomfortable truth. War does change the news cycle. It does redirect attention, and it does unite the country behind the commander-in-chief, at least temporarily. So 3 forces converged on February 28th. 1. The Epstein story was peaking. Gates had just apologized. Clinton had just testified. The files were dominating headlines. 2. The AI that simulated the war was banned the day before because it refused to spy on Americans. 3. Netanyahu had been pushing for months, and the window for preempting a congressional vote was closing. 3 forces, 1 war. But wars have consequences beyond Washington and Tel Aviv. Now we come back to where we started. February 28th, the day the world changed for a country that had nothing to do with any of this. Japan. The Strait of Hormuz closes. 20% of the world's oil disappears overnight. Tankers stop moving. Insurance premiums skyrocket. Japan, the world's fourth largest oil consumer, gets about 95% of its oil from the Middle East. Over 70% of that comes through the Strait of Hormuz. Economic Security Minister Sunai Takaichi looks at a number that should terrify every Japanese citizen: 200 days. That's how long Japan's strategic oil reserves last if the strait stays closed. But here's the part that keeps Japanese officials up at night. It's not just oil. Japan's liquefied natural gas reserves. They only have 3 weeks. 3 weeks. And Trump says the campaign could last 4 weeks, maybe longer. The math doesn't work. Every additional dollar per barrel costs Japan's economy 1.3 trillion yen. Analysts estimate a sustained closure could shrink Japan's GDP by 3%. Now, the crisis is here, and Japan's leaders are silent. They won't label it. They won't trigger the response. Because to do so would be to admit that their American ally, the one who started this war, just strangled their economy. Takaichi didn't ask for this. Japan didn't vote on Epstein, didn't lobby for war, didn't choose this timeline. They're just counting days while the world decides their future. Day 200 is November 2026. By then, either the strait reopens or Japan's economy flatlines. We know Japan now has 200 days of oil and 3 weeks of gas. What we don't know, what we may never know, is whether these are coincidences or connections. Is it coincidence that the AI that simulated the war was silenced the day before it started? Is it coincidence that the war started 4 days after the most damaging Epstein revelations? Is it coincidence that Netanyahu got his war just as the midterm clock started ticking? 19-year-old Cooper Jacks, an officer with the Walker County Republican Party in Georgia, said his phone lit up with messages from fellow Republicans in disbelief. Anxiety about what a new conflict could demand of younger Americans. He said, "We often have politicians that are way past the age to be able to fight these wars, being all ready to say, yeah, go fight it. And then that burden falls on my generation. The question isn't whether this war was justified. The question is whether we're being told the full story of why it happened now." On February 10th, Trump said it was time for the country to maybe get onto something else. 18 days later, we did. Whether that was planned or just how it worked out, whether the Epstein pressure, the AI ban, the Netanyahu lobbying, and the midterm clock are connected or coincidental, that's something only the people in the Situation Room at Mar-a-Lago actually know. But here's what I know. Japan has 200 days. Your gas prices are going up. Your shipping costs are rising. Young Americans are watching their leaders send them toward a war they didn't choose. And an AI that refused to spy on Americans is now banned, while the war it simulated plays out on your screens. This channel exists to connect dots that don't get connected anywhere else. If you want to understand what happens on day 201, and whether any of us make it that far, hit subscribe. Ring the bell, stay connected for next video. Thanks for watching.